from The Return of the Boss, a novel based on a true story a guy told me in a bar one time, by Oxtron, as read by the author. With the great machine tomb in flames behind him, Clango Cyclotron the 17th, last of the great robotic lovers, fled eastward. He knew that even now the nanolich was crawling from the ashes of the tomb, building itself a new body and honing in on the sweet scent of his coolant. Death was coming for him. Servos screaming, he crested a ridge, and the acid sea of Gun sprawled out before him, its chartreuse waters hungry for his metallic flesh. His luck had run out. He brushed the control of his quark saber, and it flared to life, crackling and bathing him in a glow of pink neon. If it was time to meet death, he would do so on his own terms. Then he heard it. The sound that had drifted through his defragmentation cycles for nearly a decade. Sound like the wind across a field of dry grass. The nameless starship rose up from below the ridge. He'd only seen it once before, in the skies over Intent, but it had dwelt in his mind ever since. In the distance, the nanolich let out an earth-rending cry, its shapeless new form rising up in silhouette. Clango deactivated the quark saber. The nameless starship hung in the air before him. The ground shook. The starship extended a ramp, ending silently at his feet. Spewing techno-curses, the nanolich crawled toward the ridge, devouring the landscape as it went. Clango stepped onto the ramp, his actuators trembling. The ground fell away behind him, but it didn't matter anymore. Death had come for him, but destiny got there first. The nameless starship sped away as the planet began to collapse. The end.
Welcome to The Chimera, a role-playing adventure show. We've got another flashback for you this week, which I think may answer some long-standing questions about a certain member of the crew, and more specifically, what is up with, his whole deal. I'm Vin LeBate, and joining me this week are Jeffrey Bard as Raleth, as well as Kacey Smith, Kelly Wiseman-Ruth Jackson, Braden Lamb, and our GM, Josh Hall-Bachner, who is this guy.
If we were going to kind of cut in at a point where Raleth is presumably getting started on preparing for the case, and someone that he would be kind of conferring or talking with in this process, where and who do you think that would be?
I would say something along the lines of he's going to be getting information about the type of court case it's going to be, what is valid in that sector. He would find out that it is mech-to-mech combat, that whoever is representing Shambor gets to choose the mechs, and he would probably be doing a lot of research on how they get piloted, what kind of stuff is involved with what weapons can be used, that sort of thing. So we'd be doing a lot of research on that, and then probably doing a lot of simulations.
So video games.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. What's the locale look like, do you think?
They've the offices of whatever offices he worked at. I can't remember.
I think it's Adazil, Steellock, and Glued.
Oh, I think that's it.
As a deal.
You can never get.
So their offices are kind of in the bleed, and so they're kind of perfect for this sort of thing where they can kind of basically, a conference room can kind of be whatever they want it to be or what they need it to be. So they just reconfigure the space to kind of fulfill the kind of research that they need to do. If they need to look at case law, the conference room kind of becomes like a library that goes on forever and has all the books that you could imagine and not imagine. And then, like, if they need it to be a video game simulator, it can be a video game simulator.
We need precedents. Lots of precedents.
It's exactly what it's like. They make the bleed work for them.
Okay. So do you think you're more likely to be conferring with somebody like from the legal team or talking to somebody who's actually representing the client in this case?
I would probably be talking with the legal team, of which I would be a part of. There would be at least 6 or 7 other lawyers assigned to this case, and I would be running the case for it. And they would be the ones who are helping me out, in figuring out, what the specs of the mechs are, what kinds of things I can expect, that sort of thing.
Great. Let's have the rest of the legal team introduce themselves then.
Well, I guess I'll pick up Azadil, who's one of the head partners of the firm, and
she's probably pissed off that I'm
Stila...
leading this case.
Huh?
She's probably pissed off that I'm leading this case.
A little bit. She still kind of feels like Ralph isn't really ready for a case of this caliber, and there's been some murmurs of making him partner, and she thinks he likes to play things a little loose and lazy, and that his hotshot tactics are going to get them screwed at some point. But so she's here mainly to kind of make sure he takes this seriously, and it isn't getting distracted or going off on tangents that she would consider irrelevant, whether she's right or not. It's probably open for debate. Ralph, what's the name of your species?
It's been so long since I've looked.
Ulmast?
Yes, that's what it is.
Ulmast. So she's another Ulmast. She has reddish hair, but blood kind of red, not like I have red hair kind of red.
Right. And
she kind of has, it's very pretty well styled, sort of up in one of those serious twist kind of buns. I'm a working professional and I take things real seriously. And she's in an expensive A-line dress suit. And of course, since she's an Ulmesh, she's also a little anteater lamprey-mouthed individual. Maybe a couple inches taller than Ralph, mostly because of the heels. So she's sort of sitting at the table with her fingers sort of steepled, watching as Ralph is, simulating fighting at her mech and basically backseat driving him.
Zaylock? I could go for Zaylock. I'm thinking very tall, slender, almost skeletal figure, humanoid in elaborately wrapped yellow and white robes. Really, really impressive eyebrows.
Oh.
Nice.
Probably a senior member who's kind of been around too long.
Also present is the firm's elderly clerk, Mr. Yim, who is a cluster of wings with a big eyeball in the center. He's sort of doddering, but he's good at fetching papers, although you're not quite sure how. But they always end up where they need to be.
I really like that a floating eye surrounded by a cluster of wings is doddering. What was his name? Mr. Zim? Mr.
Yim.
Yim.
And rounding out the legal team is Viscereem. Viscereem is about slightly tall by the short standards of this galaxy. Figure in green and black robes with a hood over his face. No one ever sees what's underneath the hood. And protruding from, he has two arms, and protruding from the long sleeves of the two arms are just a mass of tentacles in place of where one might expect a set of hands. He hovers about 6 inches off of the ground on a willowy cloud of black mist, and there's some faint groaning and wailing noises that sort of surround him at a dull bit at all times. This is like your office frenemy.
Okay. We go out for drinks.
Yeah, and occasionally like poach clients from each other, and like it's sort of a
And we're probably competing for the same partnership slot.
Yep.
Okay.
You go out for drinks, and occasionally the drinks are poisoned.
Yeah, but that's like putting an olive in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How dare they serve me these unpoisoned drinks?
Right.
I'm never coming here again.
Okay. So at this point, you're all basically awaiting the arrival of an individual who's supposed to provide some additional context and information about the case, kind of representing the people who are representing the client, essentially. So anything anybody wants to kind of establish before I bring that person in?
Don't think so.
Okay. So after a what seems like a slightly longer wait than you'd expect, one of the doors just kind of slips open, and kind of a wave of acrid reddish mist rolls out from it. There's kind of a light that kind of strobes slowly behind it that would not be what you would see there normally, essentially. And after this starts, the mist kind of continues to roll in. The room starts to, smell a little bit stronger and feel a little bit colder. But for what again seems like just slightly too long a period of time, nothing else seems to change. And then at this point, something kind of floats in. It's hard to get a good visual sense of it because you've got something that's kind of like extra dark. The light and the mist both kind of seem to slip around it, and so you get something almost more like a silhouette. But the shape is kind of vaguely humanoid in orientation, with kind of a cloak type thing that looks like it's kind of slung around its shoulders and kind of waves a little bit at the bottom, kind of a jagged edge with lots of kind of pointy, tendrily things. As it kind of gets in closer, you can see that there's a head, and it's hard to tell if this is a helmet or the actual head of the thing that you're looking at or what, but it kind of has a stonish appearance, and you can see basically a set of eyes begin to glow, kind of a set of red serpentine eyes, and you can see kind of large fangs framing the area that normally you'd kind of expect to see a face if this was like a human helmet, but inside of that there's just black emptiness. So it kind of floats over. It goes, "I am Moro Vex. I represent your client."
Your Graces, Mr. Morovex has arrived.
Morvex, it's good to see you. Been a long time. Actually, I don't think it's ever been, has it?
Don't call me that.
This is the first time? This is the first time,
This
right?
is the first time. Don't call me that.
Don't call you Morvex?
Oh, I thought you abbreviated. I thought you were saying Morvex, like you had a cutesy nickname for him.
Sit down.
I don't sit.
Stand then.
I don't stand.
Stand? Well, float there and just do your thing.
I will.
Do you want some coffee?
Yim slides over a chair anyway.
I will take coffee, yes.
Yim, get this man some... No. As a deal, go ahead and get me some coffee for our friend Morovex over here.
Oh, snap.
Oh,
I
man.
will also take a coffee. With cream, please.
Your Graces, I can fetch the coffee if you wish.
That would be excellent. Thank you, Ian.
Yes, I shall fetch the bean juice.
Visarim says something in his native tongue, which Mr. Hume, of course, understands.
So that's 4. It shall be done.
All right, so Moravex. I think we want to get you updated on our progress here. I think our court date is set not too long from now, but as we have assured you and your client, everything is really well taken care of. They don't seem to have a case that's worth much at all. The mechs they have are, I don't know, 2 billion years old compared to what we have these days. So the low technology gives us a really big advantage in this particular case, and their weapon systems are extremely basic. I mean, even Mr. Yim over there could handle them pretty well. So, do you have any questions for me? Anything about what we're doing and how we're handling the case?
Do you have a clear understanding of the importance of this issue to the existence that I represent?
Absolutely. I mean, this is not our first rodeo. We've been around. We've done this before, haven't we, Zaylok?
We have, in the eons,
And as a deal,
dabbled in
she has
such
done this
eldritch
before.
matters.
Sorry.
I have concluded.
And that's the deal. I mean, she's been around the block, I don't know, 600-700 times. She knows exactly what she's doing, but has entrusted me to lead the case because I have some particular insights that she does not have. So, so as you can see, you are very well taken care of here, and we know exactly how important it is for this case to result in a successful conclusion, which of course we have no doubt about that actually at all.
At the moment that you say that you have some insight that she doesn't have, definitely his kind of head or head-like thing kind of inclines itself very slightly to look over it as a deal briefly and then back to you.
As a deal sort of has like one eyebrow arches faintly, and she kind of works her jaw a little, which looks very strange on an Ulmast. So the sort of the little pointy inward-facing teeth just sort of rotate in one direction and then the other. And she sort of slurps her coffee.
Do you think that she's worked with Moravex before?
I expect so. Probably not often, just because they don't tend to represent clients of this caliber all that often, but probably once or twice before.
Sathago is not really like the kind of client that is like just constantly suing people for minor violations. It's a lot of work for him to, wake up enough to bring down the cosmic wrath of the legal system. So Vex kind of stops and considers for a second. Goes, I suspect that we should review some of the fundamentals of the case.
Fundamentals are all there. Vizarine, Mr. Yim, go ahead and let our fellow know what we've gathered.
Your Graces, I have gathered the hot bean juice, as well as several types of milk, crystallized sweetener, and puree of moon pig, if it is to your liking.
Mr. Yim always knows what we want. And I take some of the moon pig, make a cup.
Something that is sort of almost kind of like a hand will kind of slide out from under the kind of flowing robe there. And one of the coffees will kind of fly into that hand-like thing. At the moment that that he grasps it, even though it's hot coffee, ice cubes form all around the top.
I asked for mine with cream. This is far too tenebrous for my liking.
Of course, I shall generate some cream momentarily.
Vizarine sips his coffee, somewhat daintily in fact, and while drinking through whatever's underneath the darkness of his hood, at the same time continues to just speak in his language.
It's really hard to tell when Vizarine is drinking and when he's talking.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's exactly the same noise. Subtitles say, Good coffee, thanks.
All right, so Viscerim, Mr. Yim, let's go ahead and get that presentation going.
All right. Viscerim gestures expansively with the arm and tendril appendage that is not holding a cup of coffee, and a swirling mass of red and purple something conjures into being and spins for a bit, spins a little bit longer, like, oh, it's having trouble loading or something, and then the beginning of an arcane PowerPoint pops up and the presentation begins.
And it basically goes through all the different mech types that we could possibly pilot for this, all of the technologies that they possibly could include, anything that we might not have thought of, like, you know, if there's a nuclear clause, or if for some reason they have noetic pulse rays and we weren't aware of it, but, you know, we're at 99.99% sure that they're going to keep it pretty clean. They're an honorable culture. There should be no gotchas in the actual conflict.
Do we want to go over, I guess more for context sake than because these folks wouldn't know it, but like the actual, what the case is, like who's being sued and why?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, Josh, it's up to you.
Okay, so as this is kind of going on, I think Vex is going to kind of, you know, another hand-like thing is going to come out of the other side, and he's not exactly taking notes, but he is kind of making small gestures as the presentation goes, which any of you who are familiar with him at least would recognize as something that kind of reflects him ascribing information about what's being presented to him into an Akashic record. So he's kind of following all of that. And at the end of that, it kind of takes it all in and he goes, I'm going to let me briefly address the nature of the claim again so that we can be certain that the strategy for settlement is correctly understood by all. He's kind of waiting for somebody to acknowledge that.
I mean, of course.
Absolutely.
Absolute, whatever you want. More Vex? Sir?
So it is acknowledged that my relation, Tsafagwa, the sleeper of Nkai, the beast of the grand circular mouth, the swelling hate that lies within the universe, holds an absolute and irrevocable ownership of a variety of representations and brand terms related to his areas of titular control. And that our legal representation, this firm, by no means the least of which, has endeavored extensively to ensure that these marks are properly protected and utilized throughout the known galaxy. In this case, we have what is almost certainly the most significant instance of trademark infringement that those within the Elder God community have experienced in many collective universes worth of life and death times. Shambor, with its honestly rather tacky tourist destinations, have established themselves as the home of the one true tomb of the greatest of the old ones. We have established repeatedly that we believe this violates our trade dress, our markers in a variety of ways, and that only the absolute destruction of the world, the consumption of the souls of all involved, and the creation of a new monument which represents the futility of living existence in the face of our Master's Majesty can properly resolve this. However, we are willing to consider alternate strategies in order to avoid drawing out the trial too long.
And that's where we come in. And like I said, Moravix, we've got this under control. I mean, look at this team. Is this not the most beautiful team of lawyers and representatives that you could possibly have in that courtroom? I don't think so.
Truly, our iridescence is indescribable.
Closed captioning, we rule.
This noisome transgression will not stand.
Were there any other items that must be established for the record?
I mean, on your part, you have done all the due diligence that I could imagine. I mean, the files you sent over were exhaustive and many in number. I mean, this is really an open and shut case. I don't even, I could get probably a junior right off the street guy to be able to handle this. So I wouldn't worry at all, Moravix. I know that's your job, but you should just take a vacation and we'll take care of it. And when you come back, this will be all resolved. That's what you pay us the big bucks for, right?
He very slightly inclines his head back over to I'm spacing on
Azadil.
Yes, to Azadil again, looking essentially for some visible recognition that these things have just been said.
Yeah. Azadil kind of glances over at Ralith and then says, Moravix, I can assure you we will not let you or your client down.
I can assure you that should you do so, the universe will have no longer any knowledge that you have ever existed.
That's a risk every time we take one of these cases, and as you can see, we're still here.
He kind of it's kind of like a nod or a bow, but given that anything like, kind of biological arrangement is difficult to discern in here, it just kind of looks weird and menacing. He goes, a pleasure as always doing business with you. And begins floating backwards without visibly turning around in any way, back out through the door and into the mist and the red flashing that he entered through.
Azadil, I think you're a little bit too tense. This could have gone a little bit better if you just relax and try to enjoy the ride a little bit. We've done all the due diligence. We don't need to be nervous.
Shall I call the masseuse?
Mr. Yim, yes, you can.
I shall fetch the masseuse.
And Ralith kind of sits back in one of his chairs, looking really smug.
I want you to listen to me very carefully. If you fuck this up, I swear by the 3 heads and 5 anuses of Nothgor, you will be finished. Do I make myself clear?
Ralith takes a sip of coffee, thinks for a second, gestures at her with the coffee, and says, of course, we got this.
We had better. And I think at that point she takes her leave.
Yim returns with the masseuse, which is, of course, just a sphere of tentacles.
Over here, Yim. Over here, Yim.
It is extremely effective.
I don't know why she's so tense all the time. It's why all the other partners are kind of pushing her out, I think. They just don't want to hang out with her anymore.
Bro, she totally wants you, bro.
What? No. Dude, she's been a pain in my ass since I got here.
The angles of love are non-Euclidean.
No, I think she's just intimidated by me, and I think that I don't know. She sees my talent, right? Like she feels like I'm going to oust her, which is, it's been my plan since the beginning, but she doesn't need to. We could do this amicably. It doesn't have to be a fight. But anyways, I think we got this, right, guys? We've done our work.
Totally.
And Mr. Yim, we got all the information we possibly could get on these mechs.
There are 16,428 files available at your leisure.
And they're
Yes.
all up to date. They're nothing hidden, nothing in Discovery that we haven't gone over.
In the full chaos of the universe and time, what can we really know? But yes, we've got this.
Okay.
Thanks, Ayla.
So
I appreciate it.
So there, let's kind of, spinny Batman symbol.
Spinny elder sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cut to the day of the trial. So, the venue here has been selected to appear on Chambord. And kind of in keeping with the nature of the specific violation under discussion, this is actually taking place in what's essentially an attraction that is labeled with a giant, sign out front that calls it the Arena of the Old Ones. So there's this kind of, big Coliseum-like space with all of these extremely tacky chairs, kind of filling up the stadium seating. They all have like purple tentacles on the arms and there's kind of like weird green glowing lanterns everywhere, and the ground in the center is all just dirt, but it's got all of these kind of like amateurish like sigils painted on it in like basically the equivalent of like stadium like line painting. Like somebody came out here and did it up like this after the football game was over. And kind of a makeshift set of court benches have been set up. There's basically a judge's chair in which sits what appears to just be a large undifferentiated mass of greenish bluish goo. There are, kind of two benches at far sides of the arena for each of the two legal teams. So who would be, I guess, like the second for you here, Rolith?
I am guessing it would be Viscereem.
Okay.
Because I think
Yeah, I agree that
Azadia would be kind of like watching. She would be the overseer,
Right.
not directly involved. Unless it went sideways.
How about that?
So I'm imagining that you arrive relatively close to the actual beginning of the event. At the time that you arrive, the team is already well ensconced at the other bench. So you see the previously established form of Ella Persephone standing in an absolute prim fashion, absolute stock straight, hands both gripping a single kind of legal case in front of her, essentially not really moving, standing right next to, the large black form of the mech assigned to her side. She also has one assistant with her. If anybody wants to possibly plug in an idea there.
Oh, could you describe again the defendants in this case?
Sorry, describe like physically?
Yeah, the people of this world, which is
the
Chambord.
Chambord. Yeah, they're they kind of are vaguely human shaped, kind of wide, multi-limbed, cyclopean. They have like a lot of people who host, kind of tourist destinations, they've kind of assembled everything here into kind of a concept of what they think of the average like visitor or client like is going to look like. So it's not necessarily all that well suited to them personally, but there are a number of them that are kind of filling up the stands here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, there is, Persephone, who I can just kind of redescribe as she's from a race with kind of a humanoid shape, ultra slim bodies, bald blue heads. She always wears these pretty noticeable but reasonably reserved suits in kind of a sea green and blue color, although right now she's wearing like a red lapel pin, and her outfit looks a little bit more, power forward than is typical for her, for anybody who actually follows her career. And then she's got an assistant kind of standing nearby, looking rather distinct in attitude. Ella is completely chill about what's going on. The assistant goes by the name of Arnyr, Arnyr, and is basically somewhere in the region of things that in human mythology would, fall somewhere in the territory of Minotaur or Faun or some other kind of, vaguely horn-headed, kind of fur-possessing, cloven-hoofed, animal-ish person. And she seems visibly nervous, kind of fidgeting, not really quite certain how this is all going to go. If there's anybody who wants to step in on her, that would be good.
Oh, okay, I can do that.
Cool. Over on that side of the field, Ella sees that the opposing counsel has finally arrived, and maybe narrows her eyes a little bit, and then strides out from around the table to walk over to where Rowleth and company are arriving, and she signals to her assistant to follow.
Arnyr looks around a little bit and follows.
Okay. So she strides right up. Are you doing anything, as she's approaching?
I'm trying to look a little bit taller. Maybe a little bit straighter. I'm kind of looking to Viscerim to kind of hold the physical space. Because I'm not doing any good. I always hate this part.
She strides right up to an almost uncomfortably close position, cranes her neck down at you. You must be Rowleth.
And your name is I can't remember, sorry.
It's Ella Persephone, as you would know quite well if you had not ignored the numerous emails, voice messages, and eldritch communication djinns that I had summoned to send to you to attempt to get you to coordinate with me before just now.
Arnyr filters through her folder.
That's not how this usually works. I don't mean to talk down to you, but we already decided on this, and I know you're a little bit nervous about the result of all this. I know you don't want to lose faith, but we're gonna beat you today, and so there's not really any need to negotiate.
She pops open her case, reaches one hand in, pulls out what you recognize as probably a business card. It's basically kind of a set of tiny little motes of light that seem to be kind of bound together purely energetically in the form of like a little basically flashy circle of stars. She leans over and she hands that to Viscerim. She goes, "Please note that we are always recruiting talented lawyers, and once your firm experiences the results of losing this particular case, should you survive, my number is included." And she kind of turns around and walks back away.
Rowleth yells, Ella, that's really unprofessional,
Does not acknowledge you on the way back over.
Arnyr also produces a regular business card.
It appears to have a personal number written on it, which she hands to Viscerim.
I'm too up on you, bro.
Oh, man.
We walk over to our bench.
Okay. Yeah, the mech is standing here. It's powered off, so it just looks like a big white, suit-ish at the moment. Standing by each of the mechs too is a Shambori, like, I guess basically bailiff, who's kind of done up in kind of this elaborate outfit. Of course, since this is taking place, basically in the theme park, the elaborate outfit is also kind of like some sort of, ludicrous, like, kind of like mascot outfit thing, designed to kind of make them match the quote-unquote environment. So again, there's all kinds of weird tentacles and, little glowy lights that go on and off and everything on them, and they don't look particularly comfortable. But they are clearly carrying actual, both bladed and energetic weaponry. So they, if they're a little bit grumpy, it's not going to stop them from doing their job if anybody gets out of line. After a moment, the ooze in the chair kind of pulls itself up into a slightly taller, oozier shape, and its color begins to flicker and change. On these big light boards, basically jumbotrons that kind of hang up over the whole area. It basically says these proceedings are about to begin. All rise.
Rella stands.
Viscerim is always standing.
The ooze continues to kind of flicker and everything, and all of its kind of light communication is translated back up onto these jumbotrons, and they start by reading through a long, kind of boring screed about, like, here in the 27th District Court of Shambor, on a whole long list of different dating systems for identifying the specific date and time that this is happening on, a variety of things. The case of Tsathoggua, the Whisperer in Darkness, versus the Amalgamated Republic of Shambor. Are opposing counsels ready and willing to begin trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ella looks over. Yes, Your Honor. Boards light up again. Counsels enter the legal devices.
Viscerim, did you get a chance to check out what the equipment was?
Oh, yeah. It's totally sweet, bro.
But which iteration was it? And I'm starting to climb up into the ship, the mech.
It's like retro.
That's what I figured. See, this is not going to be anything. But just keep an eye out. Keep your radio open. Yeah, I think this should be an hour tops.
So as like the mech is starting to close, basically at a point where there's like nothing anyone could do to stop the proceedings. Azadil is on her, whatever the Akasha equivalent is of a cell phone. So probably just like something that pulses strangely and has a faint sound like a beating heart. So she's kind of like looking through something, and her eyes just go wide, and she looks up and she goes, "Oh shit, Rolith," and then starts to talk, but you can't hear her because the mech closes.
Oh no.
Okay. So, the mech closes up. Basically, as it locks in shut, Rolith has used, like, what he thinks of as old school kind of like, low tech machinery like this. So he's a little surprised at the initial thing that happens, which is once it clicks together, kind of these, soft lights come on, and kind of this pleasant humming kind of like PlayStation menu background music kind of starts playing. The air begins to smell a little bit sweeter than it did before. Like it's all kind of a little bit more of a pleasant experience in that sense than he'd expect from like basically just an old machine. And he then is a little bit more surprised in a second when he just hears a voice say, "Hello, Ralath," in his head.
Hi? Do I recognize the voice?
You do not recognize the voice.
Hello?
Welcome. I hope you're ready for our upcoming conflict.
Yeah, I thought I was ready. Who are you? I wasn't told there was a representative here in the suit with me? Who are you?
I'm Munin, and if nobody told you, then I'm not sure you are ready. But it's too late now.
What?
Strap in.
Wait, I put what little straps there are on me. They're all too big, probably.
Okay, so
I've got to adjust them.
So you
frantically, I guess.
You pull on the physical straps. Shortly thereafter, you basically feel something kind of slide up and restrain your head kind of across the forehead. Kind of, this like soft, silky ribbon type thing almost. And you feel that it starts to get a little bit warmer once it's in place.
Viscereem, can you read me? Viscereem. Something's happening. I don't know what's happening, but we did not prepare for this. What is the voice in here?
Out through the viewport or whatever it is, you can see that the two bailiffs have kind of walked in towards the center. They've each got something basically like a polearm with kind of an attached banner flag to it, and they're both walking towards the center area where they eventually kind of meet. They each raise their particular weapon, and then kind of in a coordinated moment, they each swipe theirs down in a different direction. So there's a big loud kind of gong noise, and combat is on.
Viscereem, you need to raise some objections here. Something is wrong.
The instant this happens, Ella's suit flies forward, red light kind of blasting out of the backside of it. Spinning, it's flying, spinning through the air, and a giant wave of like kind of those curved lasers, as well as a second wave of like missiles, are both launching out of it in your direction.
Well, that's some bullshit. All right, I go into I think it's going to be arguments 619 from page 34. Defensive maneuvers, and then I'm going to go straight into I think it's fallacy 312, and then that should put her down. So go.
Okay. So how do you anticipate kind of, I guess, moving here?
So argument 619 is basically like the thrusters from the feet and from the wings both activate simultaneously, but in different directions, giving the mech a rotation and a vertical, kind of like a really sharp vertical jump. Mm-hmm. So it starts spinning counterclockwise around all of the missiles, and then the kind of the reflective properties of the wings deflect the beam weapons. And then after that slew of missiles passes, the mech will be in sort of a backwards, like my back will be facing Persephone's. Mm-hmm. But then I launch my counter missile attack from the wing missile launchers back at her as I kind of start going upwards. Okay. I'm going to do a loop around her, basically.
Okay. In one kind of swift motion, she draws out two large kind of curved energy blades from somewhere on the kind of assorted, exterior pointy bits of the outfit. Swings one around to, basically deflect your incoming attack, and then leaps straight up in the air, kind of doing this like kick flip thing. So she's moving in a straight upward direction, but her body is somersaulting, and moves to kind of try to swing the other one into you just as your path through the air is like about to intersect with hers.
Okay. Then I am going to kick out with one of the legs, like at her mech's forearm, to try and knock the blade away and maybe out.
Okay. And so you're just kind of like kicking in the air then.
Yeah, I'm basically going to stop it so that I kind of let her intercept me, and start that kick. So it should reach her arm right as she's about to pass me, and it should knock her off her vector, and get me on top of her.
Okay. So you kick out. You kind of strike the limb. The one weapon goes flying. Her reaction at this point is going to be to kind of try to swing the legs around and try to wrap both of hers around one of yours, basically, and hang down vertically from you. At which point she still has the second sword and she can, maneuver to bring that up against you.
Okay. So she's got one of my arms in her legs. One of my legs.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm going to try and grab the weapon between my two hands. I'm going to slap it so that I've got the blade between my arms, and then I'm going to ignite both of my legs thrusters and try to kind of thrust off of her.
So Arnir at this point leans across the aisle and to Viscerim and says, "Well, it looks like opening arguments are underway. This could take a little while, but I think they've got it. Do you wanna go get a smoothie?"
No closed captioning. That's just the noise he makes when he's excited about a smoothie.
So it's kind of Arnir's intent here to siphon away any outside help.
Yeah, I imagine that would work.
Yep.
Okay. So there's kind of a little bit of back and forth that goes on like this. Ella causes basically an energy pulse to burst out from her sword, which disrupts Raleth's hands and allows her to kind of kick free, but she kind of lands in a slightly awkward fashion. So I think there's probably a little bit more of this type of back and forth that goes on for a little bit, just kind of a lot of acrobatics and a lot of firing off of weapons and kind of dodging back and forth. And in terms
lots
of
pure Robotech missiles, way more missiles than could ever fit in either of these mechs.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in terms of pure physical combat, it seems like there's some pretty solid skill on both sides. As this is going on, and you've just unleashed some kind of barrage of fire against her while she's a little bit further away, the voice speaks to you again and goes, "So you have reviewed the manuals then?"
I've reviewed.
You seem to have a decent concept of my capabilities.
I've definitely reviewed your manuals, but none of the 16,000 documents that we went over, did they ever talk about any sort of AI or remote control? I assume this is not being remote controlled.
Are you watching the timers?
The timers. I did not. This is not a timed. Which time? What? Are there any timers in this cockpit?
There is a wall with a variety of timers to the left in big, basically blue numbers, and one of them is about to count all the way down. It's basically just labeled Trial Phase 2, Emotional Energetic Field Activation.
This doesn't make any sense. This is not the rules that we signed up for. I don't. Moonin, can you inform me what I just signed up for?
You've got 3 seconds. I hope you're ready.
I'm not ready for anything. Objection! Objection!
And at the moment that you say that, the sheet that's kind of pulled over your head feels like it grows white hot. And at this point, this just absolutely massive, crushing level of kind of emotional detail floods in. Basically, all of the opposition research, everything that Ella's team has compiled about the existence of Tsathoggua within the universe, all of the ancient stories, all of the nearby planets that have been kind of devoured by the Akashic realm. Every surviving individual that she was able to track down across the galaxy who's had any kind of, negative experience with the old ones and chthonic galactic entities of any kind. And all of this information is kind of just distilled and drilled down into one like hyper-focused package that's basically blanketed across the entire field of battle, but in particular beamed directly into your head. And it's a lot more than you were ready for.
Yep, I was not ready for that at all. I don't know what happened to I'm sure my mind just explodes at that point.
Okay, so what does that look like? What does Ralith do in that circumstance?
So Ralith has Ralith's race is naturally eidetic. They remember everything forever, any individual detail, every experience that he's ever had, he can remember, and that memory is like a physical thing that exists below the skin. All of the Olmasks kind of have this property. And so what this means is that every single bit of this information that's going into him is actually like filling these memory cells. Each one is kind of getting its own copy of it. So whatever Ella Persephone meant to do, she's doing it way, way harder than she could possibly have imagined. I would guess that this just burns him out completely. Mm-hmm. Like he's husky at this point. Like he can't speak, he can't do anything but feel the intensity of this over and over again.
So at this point in kind of like the anime adaptation or whatever, like we cut into one of those sequences that has kind of the exaggerated post-traumatic like effect that they do, right? Where everything slows down and it's like flashes of action that isn't fully connected necessarily, and there's kind of this weird deafening effect, like a big loud sound is going on.
Yeah.
So we kind of see, we see flashes of that. We see the outside of the mech where it just kind of stops completely cold for a second. We see Ralith with blood coming out from his eyes and weird kind of mystical energies kind of spinning around him in all kinds of different weird zigzaggy fireworky ways. We see Ella leaping from all the way across the arena with both of her blades in her hands, kind of held in kind of an X shape, ready to basically strike and tear you completely apart. We see her come all the way in, move in for that strike on the defenseless, mech, moving in as if it's like just maybe like a millimeter before it's about to cut, when suddenly all the lights on Moonin get about 10 times as bright. There's like a flash of light that blinds almost everybody nearby and just almost, blanks the screen to just these two silhouettes in the middle. There's a pause and then there's a loud sound. Ella's mech goes flying backwards off into the distance. Smoke kind of spills off of Moonin, who's still standing there, but both of, her limbs have kind of come together in a shape that exactly parallels the blades that Ella was bringing down in. And then there's kind of like the flashes in and out to black. There's a shot of Ella spiraling, kind of off from the surface of the planet. There's a shot of people in the audience kind of shouting and yelling things that aren't obvious, can't easily be understood. There's a shot of the ooze kind of, blinking and, kind of turning orange and yellow. There's probably a shot of Azadil at this point, like negatively reacting to the phone in some way. And then, this kind of rapid fire set of disaster images, giant cracks cutting through the surface of the planet, explosions of light happening, the sight of one giant eye opening in the sky, followed by a row of infinite teeth just rising up over the horizon. a loud sound, like the loudest, like, kind of television feedback, like whine sound that you've ever heard. And then everything kind of goes to darkness.
So was that a mistrial then?
I think it's got to be, right?
Probably, if you can find a secondary court to actually rule on it, at least. So probably the next thing Raleth actually remembers is slowly waking up, still within the cockpit, on some entirely unknown planet. In this case, there's some place that's kind of got like almost a savanna type territory, kind of, grassy, bright sun, some kind of trees and smaller, green plants around everywhere. A binary sun system, weird little kind of mammal-esque creatures kind of scampering around in the distance.
Is it all really normal?
It's all pretty normal.
Like nothing's changing, there's no ooze, there's
no visible ooze.
I'm outside the Akashic system. That's probably... Hang on. Moonin? Moonin doesn't answer.
There's kind of after a moment, the kind of lights flicker back on almost in the cockpit. We've come quite a way, haven't we?
What happened? Where are we?
I have a suspicion that you weren't quite as prepared as you claimed to be for this.
That is true. I was not prepared for this. I don't know how I wasn't prepared for this, but I was not prepared for this.
Not exactly at your command. The suit stands up and kind of, looks around. You're kind of in like what seems to be an impact crater, but it's cool, so it seems like you probably landed some decent time ago. And so there's no other obvious physical trace evidence around about like how recently that was or how you got here exactly. And there's no obvious sign of civilization anywhere on the horizon. But you do find yourself A, very, very noticeably thirsty, and B, with essentially like a splitting headache.
Yeah. Is there anything resembling water around here?
Oh yeah, there's like a little watering hole nearby.
Okay. Then I guess that I'll nudge Moonin over there.
Okay, she kind of trods over. It seems to be a little slower than usual.
And then I guess I'll just go ahead and get out and get myself some water and maybe take a bath.
Okay, so the second that you step out of the suit, or rather, the second that you start to step out of the suit, because I don't think you managed to complete doing so, like you lean your head out a little bit, and you feel that headache, which right now is just kind of a dull pain with no kind of particulars attached to it. Like you can almost feel it like resolving into details as you kind of start to step out. Like hooks are tearing at your brain, and all of these tiny little unrelated details about individual insects that were devoured in the course of like some cosmic disaster in the past, or some particular like cultic chant that was used to summon an old one in like a previous iteration of the universe or whatever. Each of these little tiny details is kind of like struggling up into your brain the further that you step out from outside of the mech.
Oh, this is not good.
And after you get like maybe even 3 inches, like it already seems like it's going to be too much.
I guess I fall back into the cockpit.
It closes up and it nicely resolves again. Still a very bad headache, but a dull one that seems to have no details associated with it. You almost can't remember, like, what it was that you were experiencing. You can just remember kind of like the reaction that you had to experiencing it.
Moonin.
Yes, Rala?
What are you doing to me?
I believe that I'm assisting you in maintaining a state of, there's a pause, relative emotional equilibrium.
Is there any way you can give me some water?
I'll allow it. She leans over and basically sticks one of the hands in and some kind of piping or something, pulls it in, and there's a little like feed pipe or something that you can access.
So I'll take a sip of it, open up the cockpit again, kind of try to get out again.
At the time that you open it, you just feel kind of it just feels the headache just starts to feel fuzzy, right? There's still no details. It doesn't really get any worse just from having the cockpit open. Each little inch that you move forward, you feel the memories kind of starting to resolve.
Just creep back in. Moonin?
Yes, Ra.
I don't know what to do.
I agree. You do not know what to do.
How long can you keep this up?
Given full charge and proper periodic maintenance, I believe indefinitely.
I think we're going to have to get to know each other pretty well.
This could be the beginning of a beautiful partnership.
That's it this week for the Chimera. Join us back here 2 Mondays from now, or if you just can't stay away, find us online at thechimera.space or on Facebook or Twitter at ChimeraPod. And as we move into 2018, consider finally taking a moment to drop by Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and a review. Looking at you, Phil.
One quick second while I find a note here that I had.
We await the accumulation of knowledge with great anticipation.